The South Okanagan Similkameen is one of Canada's rarest ecosystems and Canada's only official desert.
This picture is a picture of the Prime Minister, Gordon Campbell, who was Premier of the province at that time, and myself, at the time of signing the agreement between the federal government and the provincial government to proceed with the study for the development of the South Okanagan Similkameen National Park.
Gretchen appointed party stalwart and businessman Ross Fitzpatrick as the Liberal representative in the Senate for the region in 1998. Fitzpatrick was the one that started the ball rolling on the entire national park proposal.
Oh, I didn't start out with this being wanting it to be my legacy. I thought it was one of the things that I should do for the benefit of my area. Some senators go to the Senate as representatives of the province, but as you know, I was born here. I grew up in the Okanagan, and so when I went to the Senate, I asked to be a representative of the Okanagan Similkameen because I wanted to do something for the area.
One of the key points from the pro-park side is the idea of species protection, specifically species such as the antelope brush. We talked with Lee McFadden, a local environmentalist who is very passionate about species like the antelope brush.
Over 20 years ago, when we inherited this site, or leased this site from the provincial government, it is Crown land, and it had been grazed for many years before. It was basically sagebrush, which is this grayer plant here, greeny grey leaf, flat leaf on it. And there was the very, very occasional antelope brush, and this is a young antelope brush, and it has a smaller, different kind of leaf. There's some beautiful large antelope brush over here now, and a little more sagebrush. But it was basically the sagebrush and the crested wheatgrass. And this crested wheatgrass here is a type of bunch grass, but it's an introduced species, and it was introduced by the Ministry of Forestries probably in the late 1970s or early 1980s. And they went across quite large tracts of land and removed the existing flora and seeded the crested wheatgrass because it was going to be a sweeter and better food for the cattle. What that did was it got rid of the antelope brush on this site and the other sites in the Okanagan that were given the same treatment. And the sagebrush moved in, and there was a lot of small, straggly sagebrush because the area was grazed. Since we've taken the site over, of course, there have been no domestic livestock at all in here, just wildlife. And the sagebrush has died off, and the antelope brush, as you can see over here, it's dominant. The antelope brush is now dominant, and some of it is very, very large. And so the site has, with a little assistance, returned to an antelope brush grasslands ecosystem.
One of the main reasons why people on the no side oppose this national park is because it will negatively affect the ranch lands that are currently in the proposed area. We talked with Mark Quelvig about ranching in that area and how if he loses his land, it will negatively affect his livelihood and many people that work for him.
Yeah, we have range within the park, or the proposed park area. Our private lands are kind of adjacent to it, so you don't really know if you're in or out right now because there isn't a set boundary. And there can be grazing, but it's up to the superintendent of parks on an annual basis if he wants cattle there for management purposes or whatever. But that isn't really the tenure. You know, we work under a renewable 20-year grazing license, so to go from that to an annual tenure isn't too exciting. You know, to have a ranch, you know, your base property has little value without the crown grazing lands.
There has been a general increase in animosity between the two sides, as there has been an increase in threats to the people on the yes side.
Well, I have had threats. They can't really be pointed at any particular group or individual. I did get a letter that said there would be blood in the streets before we got a national park. I've had unusual things happen around the house where my car door was left open, there was a dead duck in my driveway, someone defecated in my driveway alongside this dead duck.
A common theme among the pro-park side was the idea that this will increase the amount of tourists that will come to the area to purchase wine. We talked with George Hansen about why he wants the national park as a local land user.
The economy of the Similkameen Valley is agricultural based, and there is a flourishing tourism industry that's provided by wineries and fruit stands. But it promises to bring more full-time jobs for people that live here, and also more tourism, which again creates more jobs. And so it's a bit of an economic development and community development opportunity.
One of the main groups opposing the national park is the South Okanagan Similkameen Preservation Society, who seeks to keep things as they are, without more development, but keeping things open to the public as much as possible.
Well, the South Okanagan Similkameen Preservation Society is just a group of local concerned citizens. We seek to find information out about a potential national park reserve and share that information with other local people so that we can make the best decision for all of us.
An issue that came up many times was whether or not to have a referendum. We talked with the yes side about this, and they believe having a referendum is very unnecessary as the government has covered all their bases in creating the national park.
If we were to have a referendum, it would have to be a Canada-wide referendum, because it's not just about the local people here, it's about all Canadians. This is a Canadian park.
I just don't think that governments can have referendums on government initiatives other than things such as changing the voting procedure as happening now, as you probably are aware of.
Referenda are difficult things. It's very difficult to pass a referendum when the issue is change. It's so easy to fight a referendum, to say people don't want change. So I would rather that there's been polls done, scientific polls, and the no side isn't so happy about this, but the polls show that there's 65-75% of the people are in favor of a national park. And I keep saying to a lot of people, if this were a prison or a pipeline, governments would run with that. They wouldn't have a referendum. We don't have referenda on all these important land use decisions. We just look at the facts, we look at what's needed, we look at the kind of cost-benefit analysis, both in terms of the quality of life, the value of having these conservation issues dealt with, and then we make a decision. And I think that's would be my preference here.
Although the national park has been highly contentious, it looks like the government is moving forward with the proposal anyways and hopes to open the park by 2020.